Good morning. Hi, do we have folks on the line? I see lots of people signed in, but I don't hear anyone.
We've had a problem on the last ERC meeting. Maybe they're muted. Let me get Victor.
They're using their computer, so they're muted.
Right. Okay, so if you are signed on, come here. If you are not yet dialed in, you want to go ahead and call in on the conference call line here. So, and if you will put it, it shows that we are muted. I was using my computer. So if you put in the chat, Luis, and let everyone know they need to sign in on the conference call.
I will email Lisa.
Or just say, please call in. I don't know if we have to sign in next time.
Do they all have the number?
It's right here on the screen.
Okay.
In red. So I'm thinking folks can maybe hear me because you're responding in the chat. So hopefully that's the case. So what you'll need to do is just call in on the conference call line, and we will perhaps start with some introductions on this side and then give people a chance to call in, and then we will circle back to identifying the folks who are joining us virtually today. So, good morning. I'm Jenna Cullinane-Hagee. I'm a Deputy Assistant Commissioner in the Strategic Planning Funding Division, and we'll just go around the room here to let people know who's in the room.
Thanks, Jenna. This is Julie Eklund. I'm the Assistant Commissioner in the Strategic Planning and Funding Division. I'm very glad to be with you all today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm Tracy Biggs. I'm the Program Coordinator for Academic Operations at the A&M Health Science Center and our Chief Reporting Official.
Patrick Francis, CT System. I'm in Office of Health Affairs.
Diane Ergel, Assistant Director of Strategic Planning. Alyssa Shivers, I'm a Program Director with Strategic Planning and Funding.
Luis Martinez, also with Strategic Planning and Funding.
All right, great. So we are this morning, it's the HRI Accountability Peer Group meeting. Again, thank you for joining us. We are very happy to be with you, and as we were saying to some folks who are here in the room, largely this has become a virtual meeting with just a couple of HRI folks in the room with us. And so this is something we'll talk about at the end in terms of how effective this format is, and if this is the way we want to proceed on an ongoing basis. It is a little more challenging in terms of discussion, but also given how far people need to come, we have about 2.5 hours of content, so just wanting to be mindful of people's time for the level of discussion and the amount of the topics that we have available for today. So what we're going to do is you will hear a little bit about some of the updates from our side, from the Strategic Planning and Funding Division, largely on improvements related to 60 by 30 text and some of our big statewide goals and targets that we're assessing, some updates in terms of the accountability system, both kind of the content of the data, the trends that we're seeing, as well as the actual system itself. And then we will also hear from some folks in AQW about graduate medical education updates, and then some information on marketable skills from our Innovation Policy Development Division. So that's what's coming up over the next 2.5 hours. But just wanted to hand it over to Julie just to give us a bit of a welcome.
Oh, well, thank you. I think I did welcome in the introductions, but beyond that, just really appreciate you all joining us. Every year, I think this is an important meeting. This is our opportunity to hear from the folks who do the very good work of entering information into our accountability system and giving us feedback on the data that is produced in that system, both through what your institutions submit to us through our CBM reports, as well as what you provide, again, through the information that's entered by institutions, the comments that you share, all of that. It makes a big difference to us in terms of the data quality and accuracy that you're out there reviewing and participating. I also think the meetings are very important in terms of thinking through what do these metrics mean? What do we need to be thinking about in terms of our HRI institutions? And I think this is an important time for us to get your feedback in terms of what we're looking at moving into the future in terms of our accountability measures for, again, what they're telling us about where we stand as a state and if there's particular areas of attention that we need to focus on. It's also, of course, a great opportunity for us to catch up on things that are happening in the field beyond what's reflected in the system. So again, thank you for joining us, and I'm going to hand it back to Jenna.
Okay. Can you speak here, Sue? So I think we're hearing that folks on the call have not been able to get in because the host hasn't started, so that's something on our end. So we're going to try and get that going in just a couple of minutes. So anyway, again, so right now, so what the good news is, it sounds like you're hearing us, so we'll go ahead and proceed, and then when that gets resolved, we'll also be able to hear you through the phone. So anyway, apologies for the technical difficulties here. But luckily, the first part is just me talking, so we'll just get on with that part of it. Okay, so just to review a couple of the housekeeping things. Right now, the webinar is obviously muted, so you're not able to chat with us, but the conference line is the way to call in. And then if you're having any other issues, you can use the chat box, which some of you have been doing in the actual webinar, or you can email Elizabeth Shivers, and her email's at the bottom there. And I did want to introduce Elizabeth a bit more. She has recently joined our team. She was the former Director of Institutional Research at Navarro College and has been with us for a couple of months, and she's taken on the role of helping to coordinate the accountability peer group meetings this year, and has been doing a great job getting us all organized and making sure that we have good content and all the right folks in the room. So anyway, I wanted to call out her efforts for this meeting, and then the large meetings we have coming up with the 2-year publics in 4 years as well. So this first section, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our progress on 60 by 30 text. And you can see here on the slide the 4 big goals and associated targets with the state strategic plan. This may be a table you've seen before. We've taken to kind of updating this regularly. And you can see the last 3 years of data here for the 60 by 30 goal, the completion goal, the student debt goal, and marketable skills goal. And you'll see when you look in the columns, 2016, 2017, 2018, so it's got our most up-to-date data for the 2018 data year, but you'll notice an asterisk there. In some cases, there's a lag in some of these measures. So, for instance, for the 60 by 30 attainment, that's actually 2017 data that we're showing for this year, but that's the most recently available in this kind of update for this particular year. So, I know sometimes there are questions about that alignment. But wanted to mention on that measure in particular, we had another strong year. So we were up 1.2 percentage points to 43.5% this year. So this is kind of the level of growth that we need to be seeing each year to hit that 60% mark. So 1.3 is where we need to be. We were at 1.3 percentage points last year, 1.2 this year. So that's really great progress. We're very excited to see that. And we know some of this it's a combination of the improving completions that we're seeing within the state, but also our very strong economy. We're bringing lots of educated folks into the state of Texas, and good jobs bring highly educated folks to our state. In terms of completions, we had a bit of a softer year this year in terms of completions. We saw continued improvements overall. You can see we were up to 341,000, about 2.2% that we increased this year. But that's a little lower than we were last year and a little lower than kind of the level that we're hoping for at 3.9% kind of each year if we were to expect some linear growth. And I do think it's important to note that we don't really expect all the growth to be linear every year. We know that in the earlier years we expect it'll be a little bit lower and to hopefully pick up the pace in subsequent years. So nothing to be alarmed about, but just to give you kind of a sense of how much growth we need to be seeing on average. You can see that in the fourth blue column and then that first yellow column. But with completions overall being a little bit softer, we saw that that phenomenon kind of trickles down to our subpopulations, and our key subpopulations, especially, I'll point out, economically disadvantaged students, was very modest this year. So if you look at economically disadvantaged, you can see we went up not even 400 completions for our poor students. And so that's one, especially that we are keeping a close eye on. But you can see for Hispanic, African American, and male, all of the increases this year were lower than what we're aiming for, but positive in each category. You'll see for the next one, the percentage of high school students who come directly into higher education after they graduate high school. There are not new numbers available yet. We get those in late April or May typically. We get the file from PEA on our high school graduates, so we don't yet have that available, but we'll certainly be sharing that once it is available. The last couple of years, we saw a decrease. We saw a slight uptick in the most recent years, so we're hoping to see, again, moving that trend in the right direction. For marketable skills, we're going to talk more about marketable skills. Later on, we have a whole session dedicated to it. But for now, I just wanted to provide one of the quantitative measures that we're tracking for this item, and it's the percent of students who are found working or enrolled 1 year after they graduate. And you can see that we've been pretty stable. This is a maintenance goal for us. We want to be at about 80% throughout the course of the plan, and we're at about 78.5%, so just under, but very close to where we've been the last couple of years. So we're in very good shape here. Yeah, Pat.
Can I ask, and is this related to all students or undergraduates?
This is undergraduates, I believe. Yeah.
Because a lot of times when I'm looking at these things, I'm trying to remind myself, remember, which is related to undergraduate students, and if it is undergraduates, does it pick up the
Actually, sorry, no, it's all programs. It's all programs. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. No, I told you. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And for marketable skills, and that's true also for, in terms of the expectations around which programs will have identified marketable skills, that also applies to all programs. So, excuse me. And we're also, I have a little handy cheat sheet, which I actually think we may want to make available, because for each goal and target, there often are different institutions included and different levels of credentials included, and because it's not consistent across the board, it's, I always want to double check which ones are which. So, okay, and is the call-in line happening?
It should be.
Okay.
Okay, should we see if anyone?
Yeah, has anyone been able to call in?
I feel like we would hear a boop boop.
Yeah.
You hear something?
It sounded very faint, though.
Okay. All right. We'll check back in a second. It seems like we should hear people join the call.
Yeah.
Okay. So jumping back to the data on the slide, I'm now looking at the student debt information, and the overall goal is looking at the level of student debt as a percentage of first-year wage. And I just have to tell a funny story that I heard Evan Smith from the Texas Tribune talking about the 60 by 30 tech strategic plan, and he was being, candid and colorful, as he sometimes is, and he was saying he really likes the plan, and relative to public ed, he thinks that it's great that we have a plan that's sort of guiding the direction for the state. And he said, but let's be honest, not all the goals are as sexy as other goals. And he said, in particular, student debt is not our sexiest goal. It's a sexy topic. But he said, I didn't know there was going to be math on this test. What is this student debt as a percent of first-year wage? He said, you're really making me work for what this information is. So anyway, just as a refresher, we do look at the total debt for an individual student divided by their wage, their first-year wage. Then we line all those students up, and we're looking at that median student. And the goal is that median does not exceed 60%. And so we've been doing really well on this maintenance goal. You can see that we're at 59%, kind of hovering under that 60% for the last 2 years. But the big progress that I was pleased to see this year is actually on excess semester credit hours. We saw a 2 semester credit hour reduction this year from 18 to 16. So we're aiming to be at 12 by 2020, so there's still a ways to go, but in both our 4-year and 2 years, we saw a significant drop this year, bringing that statewide number down. So that's really moving in the right direction. I think can have a strong impact on, the amount of time and the amount of dollars that students are spending out of pocket or taking out in student debt. That's an important piece. And you can also see that we are under our 50% benchmark for the last item here, the percent of undergraduates completing with debt. This number, as I said, we're trying to be under about half the population with any student debt. And we find again and again that people are sort of surprised when you hear about student debt. You think that everyone has debt and that everyone has $100,000 in debt. And, that's not really the case on the ground. And we know that fewer than half. And so this year, 45.8% of our students graduated with debt. I do think it's important to kind of keep an eye on that last number. So in some cases, having students take out less student debt is a good thing if college is affordable and people can participate equitably. But the fact that we also saw kind of a decrease in our economically disadvantaged completions, and we saw this decrease, if students are not taking out enough debt, that's also a problem if they're not participating in higher education, if they're not able to afford it. So anyway, this is not causal, it's just an observation at this point, but something that we'll be kind of keeping an eye on.
Can I ask you to go back to your cheat sheet on this?
Yeah.
Are health institutions, this is only undergraduates.
Correct.
Are
right.
undergraduates from health institutions included in this?
So I believe the answer is yes on this, although my cheat sheet appears wrong. So because I know on the next one, we have this broken out for your sector.
Okay.
And this was one where I think it wasn't initially in the conversations, it wasn't, and we had talked to all of you about it, and so I believe that was something that we brought in. But I'll go back to the notes.
That would make sense
on that. Yes,
because
why I think
it's not in the initial piece. But I looked it up this morning, and there is indeed we have breakouts all there. So okay. So that's kind of the big broad brush from the statewide perspective. And on the next slide, you'll see where we have the health-related institutions included. So for our overall completion information, for the target, for the marketable skills, and then also 2 of the items under student debt. You can see the breakouts here. We do include HRIs in the excess semester credit hour calculation, but we don't show that specific breakout here because you guys are always under 0. Your average is very low, and so we don't consider that to be any excess hours. Okay, so for completions, what you can see, these are just the completions that we count for 60 by 30 texts. So those certificate, associates, bachelor's, and master's degrees. So we aren't including your PhDs here. So you can see that overall, actually your sector had a strong year in overall completions, up 6.7%. But some of those same kind of concerns on lower growth in terms of the subpopulations that we're focused on. For working and enrolled, been this year at 73.2%, which is a slight decrease, but you can see kind of low 70s is where the sector has remained. And then with student debt, you can see that your student debt as a percentage of first-year wage is at 40%, which is lower than, we don't really think of any individual sector being right at 60%. We do think of this as a statewide average. We know our universities are up by near 70%. Our 2-year schools are, 20, 30%, and you guys are kind of in the middle here at 40%. And then the percent of students completing with debt, you can see close to 60% of our HRI students are completing with some debt for undergraduates.
So there must have been a very large increase for female students in terms of completions. If you've got a negative for male. Yeah.
Yep. So
I don't know if that's in all sectors, or you've got...
Yeah, no, I think it might be one of the next...
Here we go.
Let me get there in 2.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was just an observation that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So now what I want to show you is, now I'm no longer constrained by the 60 by 30 text measures. We're looking at all of your completions here. So you can see from certificate up to doctoral professional practice. So these are pulled directly from the accountability system, and so these are screenshots of the tables that you can find there. So this is for the statewide sector, and you can see each of these levels. And so, notice that there was kind of more growth at the master's level, and also your doctoral professional practice, some nice increases in those levels in particular, and kind of steady growth in your bachelor's as well.
And I will note that the certificates earned at HRIs are not included in the plan. It's just those level 1 and level 2 certificates that are our workforce-related certificates at the community college.
And here, another one of the key measures for your group is just showing some of those completions by selected program area. And you can see particular growth related to pharmacy. Audiology is so small, so anyway, a large percent small numbers. But you can see the growth also with dental and physical therapy. And
for pharmacy, this is only the pharmacy programs within the health-related institutions,
yes,
not
correct.
the statewide picture.
Right. This is just the HRIs. And here, headcount enrollment is one of the items that we also look at, not a 60 by 30 text goal or target, but something that we keep track of in the accountability system. And you can see that, just as Julie observed, we really see that most of the enrollment growth is happening among females. And already, it's about, more than 50%, double the enrollment with your female population. And that trend seems to be continuing. So I wanted to just pause, and folks in the room, and I hope some folks on the phone may be able to hear us as well, or even if you can unmute, maybe try that. I'd love to hear are you observing these trends? Are you thinking about kind of the gender balance at your institutions? And, do you have any plans or strategies in place as you think about kind of gender balance within your institution? Yeah, you see it twice. And then let you hear. Oh, okay, we do have you. Hello. Is anybody on?
Hello?
Hi. Yes, we hear people. Great. So let me open the question again here and just ask, are folks monitoring gender balance, and are you thinking about any particular either recruitment or completion efforts focused on male populations?
This is the University of Texas Medical Branch. You hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you, yeah.
I don't think it's a consideration that we use. We're pretty much lopsided on the female side, about 70 or so percent. Our medical school is about 50% though, but everything else is pretty lopsided on the female side. We have a large nursing school, and that probably drives a lot of it, as well as physical therapy, occupational therapy, et cetera.
Yep. What's interesting, though, is just that you didn't, if you track at 70-30, we probably would have seen some growth in the male, but more in the female, but you were, negative in terms of males. Is it a challenge to recruit males into the field right now? Do you think there's something changing?
I wouldn't call it a challenge. I think there's every year there's a certain percentage that go into nursing, a certain percentage that go into physical therapy, and it hovers around that percentage.
Oh, okay. So you didn't see the high growth for one group and
not particularly. No.
Yeah, we're seeing for statewide.
I wonder how much of it is degree programs and additional degree programs and what disciplines they're in, and if they're in disciplines that are more predominantly female. I think particularly the growth of the nursing degree programs that are healthy.
We definitely saw that the balance is, it's 80% female in the bachelor's programs in some places, and so it's definitely at the level that you'll see the more extreme sorting. But even in the doctor of professional practice and research doctorate, it's about 60% female. So at every level, it's it's more skewed female, but, varies based on program and credential level.
Females increase in all of our programs.
Yeah.
May I ask while you're on the phone, did you call in through the conference line or is this through your computer?
We're on the conference line.
Oh, great. Okay, so I'm glad we've solved that that issue.
Anybody else want to comment on kind of gender balance?
Have we seen an increase in females in the STEM degrees at the four-year institutions? I'm wondering if the pool is increasing.
My sense is that I haven't looked this year, but while we've seen, shifting towards a predominantly female overall, additions and enrollment have not, in the STEM of the last remained at, unfortunately, I'd say 30% being there now. So look, given these numbers, now it's probably 2 years ago I last looked. I'll have to look and see if maybe we're seeing changes. Obviously, there's a lot of efforts going on around the state to ensure that we are encouraging young women to participate in STEM fields, because it has been an area where we have not seen equity in terms of the male and female participation. So that's a good thing to go back and take a look at, given that these are STEM areas where you're seeing that growth.
I mean, the numbers aren't large overall, but I'd also be curious as to, within that female population, that breakdown, and whether or not there's growth across all groups or more focused.
Well, good. Well, thanks. And this is a complex issue because, as you say, it's the labor market. It's kind of a long history of gender sorting across different disciplines and programs, and there are females are underrepresented in many programs and males are underrepresented in many programs, and so I think we are trying to attend carefully to all of that balance, and not to say that we don't need to pay attention to female participation in some programs as well. So it's really a balance, but what we see kind of on average is we know that that all individuals are helped by having some sort of credential, higher ed credential, in terms of their lifelong earnings. And kind of systemically across the board, we're seeing males fall behind in terms of their long-term opportunities in higher education and long-term earning outcomes. That's why it continues to be a priority for the state overall at any level and across sectors. So anyway, not unique to your sector, certainly, and something we're looking at broadly. Okay. So now I want to get into a couple of the sector-specific measures. So here you can see resident physicians. So the filled residency positions here have been growing up to 6,783. You can see kind of a nice increase over the last 3 years in this on this measure. Also wanted to pull out research expenditures per full-time equivalent faculty. You can see overall statewide we're up to $666,000 here per FTE faculty, so an increase of about 10.5% over the last 3 years. So those are the kind of the measure updates, and so the next set of things is our kind of system updates on our side. So I know that everyone goes to the accountability system regularly because it's good for you, like taking your vitamins, to go and check your own institutional data and of course, looking at statewide progress. I know that's top of everyone's list. Of course, I'm being facetious. I know that everyone is very busy, and thinking about coming to the accountability system is something you may do only infrequently, but wanted to alert you to a couple of the new features the next time that you're in. So we'll talk about some functionalities that people have asked for. As you know, we've been in our new system for a couple of years, and I will say on our side, this year was the smoothest yet in several years. So we feel like the new system is kind of in place, and the major functionalities are where we want them, although there continues to be some enhancements that we'll seek to improve our side and user experience. Anyway, I'll just want to chat through each of these to let you know what to look for. So So one of the things that institutions had asked for when they're logged in from the institutional side and you're putting in your data, folks wanted to have a preview of everything that they had submitted before it goes live. And so now when you're in the institutional portal up under report and review, you can select create PDF, which you can see here on the slide. And that will allow you to get a complete report of everything that you submitted before we roll it over live. So often folks wanted to be able to share that with other leadership and get sign-off before it actually goes live. So now that's available.
I did want to note that, just so you guys know, it's only available for your institution. So it's a preview where you can see your soft data, but no one else can see that until we actually roll it out.
And it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, that an institution could add their comments, but then before they're uploaded to be seen by everyone, they could share them with leadership to say, hey, here's what our numbers look like, and then here's the comments I'd like to share. And I think that's one reason people really wanted this feature, so they could make sure, go through that approval process for what they'd like to add. And I'd like to see more institutions adding those contextual comments. I think they're very helpful, and hopefully this will help to facilitate that.
All right, so if you haven't done it before, you will see, because we know that we can see that not many people sign in to do that. But when you sign in to do your the elements that you're inputting directly, you can also be in the system and add comments. And so the kinds of things we see in institutional comments may be something like, on this particular measure, we were the highest in our peer group, or this is a measure where we really focused the last couple of years and we saw a nice increase, or we've decided to terminate a program and so that affected our numbers this year. So, sometimes it's something that's happening in a positive way, sometimes it's a downward shift in the trend that might be something else going on. Those are the kinds of things. So we'll see if we can mute on this side. Thank you. Yeah, if you'll just keep your end on mute unless you're chatting, that'll help with the feedback, but it's clear again now, so thank you for that. Okay, so the next item is two options for printable accountability reports. And so what this means is if you want, now that the data are all loaded and you want to look at your institution's full set of data, you can do that in an easy download if you want to have that kind of package for someone or someone who doesn't want to go in and look at each of the individual measures and kind of click through the system. So the first way you can do this is when you're in the accountability system and you've clicked on the slide here in red, public health related institutions, and then under the institutional dropdown, you've picked your institution, and then you'll see this blue link where it says create complete report, and you can click on that PDF, and what you'll get is essentially just a PDF download of all the tables for all the measures in the system for your institution. When you go this way, the good thing about this option is that it gives you the latest data, so you can get your 2018 data, which is the most up-to-date in the system. The bad news is that it is a straight pull of the data, and you will see the page breaks are sort of funny. They will go across pages in ways where you can't see the header, so it's not the most beautiful version, but it is. We're going to go ahead and mute everybody just so it stays quiet for a second. So let us know in the chat box if you have something that you want to let us know, and we'll either unmute or we can address through the chat box. This is the first way that you can download a full report for your institution. The second way is under interactive. So hopefully you're familiar with when you go into the accountability system, and you look to the far right on the menu bar, you'll see that red button for interactive. And interactive is the place for downloading data that you can manipulate. So you can see when you come in, this has been here for a couple of years, the download data button, that gives you the most functionality of picking whichever institutions that you want, any number of tables for particular measures you may want to see. You can often filter and sort the data. So that gives you kind of maximum flexibility to download and then manipulate the data in Excel however you want. I'll come back and talk about the predefined reports in just a minute, but at the bottom you can see accountability reports. And so that's where you can see essentially that same PDF opportunity. So the good news about this one is that this is formatted so that all the page breaks are very nice and it's a clean version. The downside is that that's a manual process for us to update, so you can only get up to the 2017 data this way. So we have a contractor in place and we'll be working on that in the next couple of months. But for now, if you want the pretty version, it's 2017 data. If you want the most up-to-date version, it's got the page break issue. So that's the plus and the minus, and leave to you to decide which option is best. But hopefully they'll both be looking good in the near future. Okay, so coming back to the predefined reports, what we did is, so for the data wonks in the room, myself included, downloading data is great because you get exactly what you want and you get kind of maximum detail. But not everybody wants that. They said, I just want some enrollment information, just make it simple. So we have these predefined reports, which are some of our kind of most frequently asked data items that are already packaged and you don't have to do much work. So under here we have things like degrees and certificates awarded, grad rates, persistence rates, and enrollment. And so you can click on that predefined report, choose from a drop-down menu, and it takes you to an Excel document, essentially. So you can see here, for example, for universities, HRIs, and our public 2 years, these are all the degrees and certificates. So when you open it up, it'll give you every institution, some of those kind of easy facts. Okay. Any questions or comments on those guys? Okay. So another update that's available now is the out-of-state of peer comparisons. And so for any institution that gave us their peers, and you'll see there are a couple that don't have peers, but most do, so this is the example from Texas A&M Health Science Center, and you can see there's 3 peers listed here. So for many measures, there is the opportunity to look at the comparison to the peer groups. So that was something that we had in the old system, and we were working toward for a little while, but now is available. So you can go in and see your peer information.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If we go back and we need to update our peers, do we just send that to you? Is that updated?
Yeah. Is that a formal? Does that happen at a particular time? Or?
Well, we went through the process that kind of opened up a window for all institutions a couple of years ago, and Gabriela Borkeman coordinated that process. But we've always left it, I think, that if institutions feel strongly that a peer is no longer appropriate, that they can get in touch with us, and we'll consider changing it. Now, for the HRIs, if I understand correctly, you select just your own peers, and there are no group peers. That's not the case for the universities in the 2 years. For the university, there's no group peers. For the universities, some of the peers are the same within an accountability peer group. So, and then some the institutions select themselves. So for the HRIs, it's a pretty easy process because you just have the ones you've selected and not as a group.
A lot of new leadership, so that may be a question if we can change that. I don't know if they want to or not.
Yeah.
Can I just add
Yeah.
that, like, if you want to do it, like, if you decide it now in the next couple of months, it won't show up until next year.
Right.
Because we have to go through the downloading, and it's not easy. It's easy
Yeah.
to put them in there and link you up, but it's not easy to get the data and download it in there. So we'll just do it the next
cycle.
Right.
Okay.
And you would send something to us, and we would just review just to make sure it seems appropriate, and then send back a decision, and then again, as Diane said, include for the next round. Okay. Thank you.
And regarding out-of-state peers, how many measures are there with data related to, because I think for the HRIs, it's such a odd comparison across institutions. And when I was glancing at, did go to the accountability system prior to the meeting.
Good for you.
And I pulled something out of state, and there really wasn't much in the way of data because the measures aren't real good at an institution level. Maybe at a med school level, they'd be more appropriate, but at an institution level, there's not much out there that's useful.
So it seems really comparable to what you're doing, yeah. No, I think this is, out-of-state peers is definitely something that works better for our kind of more traditional public four-year institutions, and, I think that I can see the challenge of, making those apt comparisons because our HRIs are so different from one another, even in the state, so I think it's a fair point.
Yeah, well, and especially when we consider that for those out-of-state peer comparisons, I mean, like you said, there's only a few measures that we have that come up for the HRIs, and those are research expenditures, research funds, and expenditures per FTE student. So, I mean,
right, and those are what are shown here.
Yeah. There's not very many. There might be enrollment under the completion of degrees, and then nothing in, I don't think, student debt, but then sector-specific shows the research expenditures.
Yeah.
So, there's not a lot.
Yeah, and there's obviously, a lot of states, their medical schools are part of their large research universities. Now, of course, we have a model for that at a couple of places, and I don't know if maybe it's easier for those places to find peers, but the way the HRIs are structured generally, I think it is really challenging because looking at a whole university's research expenditures beyond the HRI is not going to be a helpful comparison.
So we have 4 completion measures that we break out. So, and that's the degree award by level, degree awarded by ethnicity, degree by gender, and then degree for medicine.
So I think the last of these system updates is related to just a user functionality, which is it takes a little while to load the data once you've made a selection, and so people thought nothing was happening when things were happening just slowly. So there are now indicators that give you the little dots are moving and it's a little bit darker to let you know that just drum your fingers and it'll be here soon.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah.
That is actually something when we've talked about upgrades that I hope,
we will get there. There's more, Julie's so good. She's
or I'm not, I should have checked with you first.
So another item that I just wanted to call out for folks is that we've been doing some internal strategic planning for our division about how to improve our own internal operations. And one of the things that came out kind of across the board we have about 36 folks in our division. And one of the big items that people flagged was timeliness of institutional reporting. And when even a single institution is late, we can't run all of our kind of major analyses, our formula runs, update the accountability system, and so forth. So we wanted to think about what are the things that we can do that can help institutions, how do we support institutions to make sure data is coming in a timely fashion. And so we have a big goal for our division, and we started with really focusing on the fall because the fall is kind of most critical in terms of these big annual updates that we do. So what we've been doing is aiming for that we would get 100% of our CBM reports in and certified within 4 working weeks, and then that we're able to start analysis within 6 working weeks. So that gets us to about December 1 for the fall timeline. And what you can see, so some of the things we did were to really emphasize the certification date, not kind of the initial submission date. We made that clear in the manual, and we instituted a more standard process for sending alerts when things and kind of ratcheting up the late notifications to different levels of leadership within the institutions. And we're also going to start making it something that we just talk about more. We just did a presentation to our board just to kind of keep it on people's radar that this is something that we're tracking and really need to work together on. And so just in this first year that we've been, this first fall that we've been working on it, we went from 84% of our CBM reports in and certified by that December 1 date to 94%, so that we were really pleased to see that improvement. And what that allowed us to do is that the accountability system was updated almost a month earlier this year. And especially in a legislative session, we love to have that data ready to go right at the beginning of session, so you can see January 11th is when we were able to go live with it. So I want to give a big thank you to everybody who helped support your data coming in a timely fashion and helped us do our work. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I do want to add one thing to that, just so it doesn't cause confusion, and you folks all work with data, or most of you do, so you'll understand this. In terms of the plan, our official progress report comes out in June, and that's when we have information on all our measures, including our high school to college information, for example, that we don't have yet. So you will have heard, for example, if you've been keeping up with legislative presentations, when our commissioner presented in February at some of the budget hearings, we provided information from the prior year in terms of the plan because we had all of the metrics that had come in for that. And we just don't want to, we want people to understand there could be some confusion. You might have heard one number and now you're hearing a different number. That's one of the things that happen when you get data in earlier. We've had some numbers come in. We've shared some things with our board. There's other numbers that haven't been here yet. So just to be aware, you may see some information that's some of the prior year data because it might be a presentation where we're including all of the metrics, and this is sort of the final where we were at that point in time. And then, of course, what we shared with you earlier was here's the, hot off the presses information that has come in. And so it's positive to have so many metrics early, but occasionally we've had to make decisions about what we're going to share when not all of the pieces were quite there yet. So just a little background on that if you do see some different numbers or have seen them in presentations. Yeah, they would have been last year's, yeah.
And here, this is just showing for folks who deal with reporting, we do a standard report that you can see when all the institutions certified their data for the particular year or particular, the CDM 001, the R, the 8, and the 9 here displayed. Okay, the last thing on this piece is just future enhancements. So we will have the final interactive accountability report. So those downloaded those opportunities to download your full report, those, as I mentioned, are in progress to get all those page breaks and everything in there in a clean fashion. We're continuing to add more tables in interactive, so additional measures that you can download. We will be adding FICE to the output. Sometimes when folks are downloading, they want to compare across institutions. It's helpful to have not only institutional name, but FICE. So that was something that folks requested. We'll make that an available filter. And then improved navigation. So something that we've heard from folks is that if you start by going into the sector and then you pick a goal and then you want to go back to a different sector, it sort of kicks you back out. There's this philosophy of no wrong door on websites, and so that means you should be able to come through any side and keep going where you're going. Our system, there's only one right way to go through, which is through the sector and then to the goal and then to the measure. And so we want to make sure that that's a little bit more flexible, so and improved user experience. So that's something that we're going to be working on over this next year. And then improved speed is the other big one that we're hoping to improve. That there's definitely a delay, and the data are sort of live behind the scenes. So as we add more data, that will continue to be an issue, as it's kind of pulling that data down directly. So that's something we know we need to work on. All right, so I think that's the end of this section. Can we go ahead and unmute for just a second? If there are any kind of questions or comments about the accountability system, any functionality or questions about the data? All right.
This is Chris McKee at UTMB again. Could you run us through a little bit on your the criteria for exclusion of certain degrees from the completion counts?
Let me give that one to you, Julie. So for 60 by 30 text, the inclusion of just certificate, associates, bachelor's, and master's, sort of the rationale.
So the strategic planning committee that we brought in, this would have been back in 13 and 14, who developed the plan. Really, we're very focused on what's going to be most important for the state. And as you might be aware, in sort of past plans, we've had some emphasis on just undergraduate degrees. I think the decision, we also had, I think, in closing the gaps, a focus on doctoral degrees. That was a target, not a goal, where we far exceeded it, and I think people felt like, wow, we're actually producing the number of doctoral degrees that are needed. So sort of with that information, but the fact that in many fields that master's level was becoming very important and that we had a lot of growing fields where that was needed, the committee decided that they would include the master's level, but the doctoral professional level was not an area where we really needed to be focusing extra attention. Of course, it's very important, but I think that was the committee's decision in terms of what degrees and certificates are most important for the state. So again, I think that was part of the decision for the workforce level certificates, those level 1 and level 2 certs that are pretty much awarded by our community colleges, and then to just focus on the associates, bachelors, and masters, and not additional awards.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well, thanks for that. So the next thing we just wanted to spend a little bit of time on was to give you an update on the regional target work. So this is something that's been going on for a year and a half or so to really break down some of these big goals and targets related to the state strategic plan on a regional basis, to be a bit more clear about kind of the lift needed in each region, and also some of the key differences that we see across the state in terms of higher education outcomes. So on the first slide here, you can see this is the 60 by 30, the educational attainment information, broken out by each region. And so on the far left side, you've got the statewide number, the 43.5%, that I talked about a little bit earlier, and then each of the regional breakouts. And so, you know, it's easy to see that there's quite a bit of variety across the state, and when you look at Southeast, for example, around 30%, and Central Texas at almost 50%, almost a 20 percentage point gap between different parts of our state. And so, you know, when we think about how are we going to get to that big 60%, how are we going to get to that big 550,000 credentials, you know, every region is going to need to increase quite a bit, but regions are starting in different places, and kind of that lift looks different. And for places like Central Texas, for instance, you know, I anticipate that they will remain higher than other regions as we continue to progress, and so they may even be higher than 60%, and actually we project them up at 70% for where kind of the minimum growth we need to see in each region to get to our big 60% goal. So these are the latest numbers. These are our 2017 numbers broken out. And I do want to point out that this information is based on the American Community Survey, so the sample data from the Census Bureau. And so it's different from all of the other higher education data we put out, which is full population data that gets reported to us. And so we typically see the universe, but this is different. You know, this is our sample data from the Census Bureau. And so when you look at changes over time, they may or may not be statistically significant. So I just want to flag for you that statistical significance obviously is a function of both the kind of the size of the population and how big the change is. When you think about is it within that margin of error. And so our Metroplex, Gulf Coast, Central Texas, and the statewide numbers all increased this year at a statistically significant level. And then in the other regions, there is some kind of minor variation up, minor variation down, but none of those are statistically significant, so I wouldn't get too panicked about any of those, but they do just give us a kind of an indicator of progress, but certainly not kind of the conclusive word on what attainment looks like. But in our big regions and at the state level, we can feel confident that that 1.2 percentage point increase is indeed an indication of progress. And so this is the information by region for completions, and here you can see the 2017 and the 2018 completion improvements in most regions, and you can see that some of our several at 4.4, 4.5%, High Plains, Northwest, Metroplex, Gulf Coast, and West Texas all had fairly large increases this year, with a couple of regions, South Texas and Southeast, with some decreases. You can also see that our career schools are part of the statewide count, but they're not specifically in regions, so you can see that those have their own row, and those actually decreased. We've seen for a couple of years our career schools, our for-profits have been decreasing a little bit, either because they've gone out of business completely or have changing enrollment patterns. But overall up that 2.2% that we saw on the last, on one of the earlier slides. So over the last year plus, we've not only, this is not just a numeric exercise and sort of breaking down the numbers, it's also been an engagement strategy. And so what we've asked folks to do is in these areas where we've set regional targets to actually get together and talk to other people in the region. And so that's institutions of higher education, it's K-12 stakeholders, it's also business industry, workforce partners. And we ask folks to come together collaboratively to say in each of the areas, 60 by 30, completion, and high school to higher ed, what's one powerful strategy that you think will help move the needle in your region? And we wanted to shift the focus from thinking about only the students that I serve at my institution to thinking about how do we serve all the students who are in the region. And so, especially for high school to higher ed, for example, there are lots of students who are not going to any institution of higher education. How do we think about expanding the pool of students that we're serving to increase attainment overall in our area? So that was the first big piece, identifying kind of one powerful strategy. And then the other is that we asked institutions of higher education to set their own institutional completion target within that regional context. And so that went a couple of ways. Some institutions they said, this is where we are, and we have our own strategic planning. This is where we're going to be, and we'll kind of produce those numbers more independently. In other cases, institutions got together and said, this is where I think I'm going to be, and then they found out, the neighbor next door is going to increase a little more than them, so maybe they said, well, maybe we'll go up a little bit more. So in some places, it was a more kind of collaborative process. And so anyway, interesting to hear how that all came together. But both of those things, the powerful strategies and then the institutional completion targets, came into us in August. And so this is kind of a timeline for that first year of work. And so I'm going to head over to the starter kit in just a second. I just want to show you where some of this information lives if you haven't been to our 60by30tx.com website. But in the starter kit is one of the places where you can get information about this work. And one of the things that people are most interested in is what are the strategies my region actually submitted, and what are the institutional completion numbers for my own institution or others in my region that you may be curious to take a look at. So let me head over there really quickly. We'll go to, all right. 60by30tx.com. And if you go under resources, you'll see this regional target starter kit. And you can scroll down to find your region. And I'll just pick Metroplex for a second. Got a couple of HRIs. While that's downloading, I'll just show you really quickly. Yeah. So under the starter kit, you'll see that there's for each region, there is a multi-part kit. The third piece, you just look over here, part 3 is the regional context data workbook, and that's where you can find this spreadsheet that I'm about to show you. We have a very silly mouse that's very simple. Okay. So once you come into this workbook, what you'll want to choose is there's a lot of different data in here that starts with kind of the end in mind, thinking about occupation growth and workforce information, population information, educated population information, and completions, and then kind of backwards into high school feeder patterns and so forth. But the one thing you'll want to take a look at here is completion by institutions. And so what you can see here is the regional numbers as well as the regional targets. So everything that's a target or projection is in blue. And so something that we've ended up talking a lot about is the difference between sort of a forecast and a goal. And so these are, forecast is what happens if you aren't making a lot of changes, what you anticipate is going to happen. But this goal is more of a stretch. So what is it we could do if we enhance our success with students? And so, as you can see right here in the blue at the top, these are the regional targets and goals, and then you can see in comparison to the state. But then for each institution, the first section here is our public two-year colleges. You can see what their actuals were, broken out by these different subpopulations, and then also the targets that they submitted as of August 2018. So we can come down, you can see our public four-year institutions, and then also the HRIs. So their most recent actual data, and then the numbers that they put in. So you can see in some cases, folks are expecting kind of more of a flat growth, but whereas, UNC Health Science Center, you can see kind of some more precipitous growth between 2020 and 2025, for example. So all of that information is there. Let me know if you have any questions about your regions or any of the information available in the starter kit. The other thing I'll just highlight for you in the starter kit is the strategies that were submitted. So again, just hit the Metroplex, and what you can see, there's kind of a handy one-pager that shows you who, from a higher education perspective, is in that region, and then also from a K-12 and workforce perspective, what's encompassed in the region, kind of who are the players in each of these discussions, and then for each area, 60 by 30, Metroplex happens to have two in each of their areas, but at least one strategy that folks are focused on. So you can find that information for your regions there. So I hope that your institutions have been engaged in this process. I know that HRI, just in terms of their numbers, are not going to be kind of the heavy hitters in terms of growing the completion numbers, but very important when we think about kind of connections to business industry and the workforce, and I think that there's a really important role for you to play in thinking about where do we want to be in 10, 15 years in our region, and what do the educational opportunities look like. Let me head back over to there's a lot more information in here, but the last thing I'll just show you here is kind of the summary of all the institutional completion targets. So this is what you can see in this very large table is, so let's just take the 2020, the first set of three columns here. In the first column, you'll see regional targets for institutional completion. And so those are the numbers that the coordinating board developed for each region. So for High Plains, 18,803. Then if we look at what's in yellow, that was the sum of what institutions said to us. And they said, within the regional context, here's what my institution can do, and then we added all of those up together. And you can see for High Plains that for 2020, they're at about 96% of the target that we laid out for them. And so overall, we are just 2% shy of where we need to be for 2020, 7% shy for 2025, and 12% shy of the 2030 target. But I think that we are in very good shape, and one thing that I think is a real positive is that in this process, we actually asked institutions to give us numbers in a way that said, what's your local context, what's happening at your institution, where do you want to be in terms of your own strategic planning? And we want that kind of nice mix of ambitious but realistic, and let us work kind of from that perspective, as opposed to us saying every institution kind of here's your completion target. So we really wanted to trade some of that numerical pleasantry of everything lining up to equal 100% to say we'd rather have institutional ownership around these numbers and let that drive the process. Also, I think it's really hard to make predictions out to 2030, and everyone's crystal ball is a little bit fuzzy. So the fact that we're a little shy at 2030 doesn't surprise me. I think it's a very natural conservatism that we see there, and that as we get closer, we'll sharpen up kind of where we expect to be. So for the process, so we asked folks to turn in their numbers. This is August of 2018. After the 2020 numbers come in, we'll ask people to kind of reassess. Were the numbers you put in for 2025 and 2030, do you want to keep them where they are, or do you want to make any adjustments? So we'll open that back up at that time. We'll kind of continue to make this information available in the Regional Target Starter Kit. It's not formally part of accountability. I know some folks were sort of nervous about the idea of putting these numbers out in any way, kind of in conjunction with the accountability system, and so we have not done that. You will not find them there, and we don't we don't expect legislators to look for them there or anything. There's, nothing like that. So really this is designed to be kind of improvement focused and goal-oriented and includes that in our 60 by 30 text information.
But from this process, I'm just struck by the Southeast Texas where what the institution said matched exactly what the coordinating board, was there some sort of group think going on? And then Upper East Texas, Upper East Texas is the only place where the institutions have overshot.
Right.
And
what
was going on as part of that conversation?
Yes. So absolutely, Southeast Texas backed into their number.
Okay.
So they said...
They assigned themselves?
So basically there was a group of IR folks who said, okay, if we broke it out by current levels of completions, if everybody increased at a similar rate, this is what it would be. And so they sort of worked that out at that level and went to their leadership, and that's how their sign-off came through. So they went backwards into it. Upper East actually started by backing into it, but then some institutions said they thought they were going to grow more. And so some people kind of took the base amount of increase that they thought was needed. The other thing I'll say about Upper East in particular is that a year ago, they had the lowest attainment in the state, and they said, we don't want to be the lowest attainment in the state. So just growing an average amount is not going to help us get out of the basement. And so we really want to push more. And they were very kind of energized by that process to say, this is the minimum amount. What would it look like if we really pushed and, moved ourselves to the middle of the pack? So they were talking a lot about that.
Should we unmute and see if there's any
other kind of questions or comments from...
Should be. I have to do this or it doesn't. We don't hear them. So, anyone want to jump in? Let's make sure we're hearing you. Can someone just respond so we can see if you're able to come through?
Close. UTM.
I hear you. Okay, great, good. Any questions? We've got you back on. So, just want to make sure before we move to the next section.
Okay, so while Elizabeth is pulling up the next presentation, I'll just say that over the course of this academic year, we've provided some kind of mini dissemination grants. We've been to regions to help publicize their activities. We've been supporting in a variety of ways. Folks are developing websites or logos or different kinds of outreach materials associated with their regional work. And then we've been doing a variety of kind of outreach efforts to our board, and then in lots of other places been doing a lot of presentations about the importance of this work, especially connecting with TEA and TWC to make sure that this is really kind of tri-agency driven. We will be asking for each region to do an action plan turned into us by the end of August, so we want to kind of have an annual update, and this is not very long, but it's basically what are the kind of the action steps you've taken towards your strategies this year, and what do you anticipate will happen next year. I anticipate we'll also have an analogous institutional level survey go out by the end of August to give us basically that same information when it comes to your 60 by 30 text target numbers, what kind of key activities have you done this year, and what key milestones do you anticipate for next year.
Does that action plan go to each institution?
So there's going to be two levels. So one will go to each region, and so your regional advisory group will handle that, and then each institution will also go.
Is there someone on the website that lives who at each institution gives that?
Let me do that as a follow-up. We had point people from most institutions for the regional target work, and then we had a liaison of some kind who submitted the survey last year. So we probably have, what I think might be good is to share who the person was who got it last year and make sure that's still the right person. And we can do that as a follow-up for this group.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, then we're going to have Dr. Stacy Silverman, our Deputy Assistant Commissioner from Academic Quality and Workforce Academic Quality, talk to us about the graduate medical education and graduate medical expansion.
Good morning. So I am Stacy Silverman, and I'm also happy to talk about any other, address any other questions you all might have too about proposal development, proposal review process, those kinds of things at the end. But I just wanted to at least put that out there so you all know about that. Okay, so here is the updated slides for the number of medical schools in the 10 most populous states. New York is still in the lead with 17, although we are coming up fast behind them. We're tying with California right now in the number of medical schools that we have approved by the state in order to move forward. So you all may have known in the last year we approved 3 additional medical schools, and one of them is going to begin enrolling medical students this summer. So that is UNT-TCU. It's going to actually begin enrolling students under the TCU label because that's how the accreditation is working out for them. So, and that's the SACS accreditation. So, yeah. More medical schools on the way, maybe, maybe not. There's, we always hear things out there that so-and-so wants medical school and, something that everyone is talking about. So we may, in fact, get 1 or 2 more down the road. So we'll just continue on. Okay, so this is the big chart that everybody loves and the chart that I love so much, because I think it's pretty amazing what the state of Texas has been able to accomplish since 2014. Let me just show you on the next slide. In 2016, that little orange part where it's dotted, that was the part that we needed to get to achieve the 1.1 to 1 ratio goal. And if you look back, we did it. And we did it because the legislature in 2014 gave us $14 million to begin GME expansion, and they continued that and followed it up the next year. So the past 2 years, we've had $97 million to fund that. Now, the agency went back and asked for exceptional item funding for this upcoming biennium of $60 million, and it is in both the House and the Senate proposed budgets. So that will allow an additional growth. So we will be able to maintain a 1.1 to 1 ratio as some of the new medical schools begin to graduate their first graduates. So UT Austin's Dell Medical School will begin graduating their students in 2020, as will UT RGV. So those will add an additional 100 or 105 medical students into the mix of what we'll need to make sure we have the number of first-year medical residency positions available for all those graduates. So, any questions about this? I can go back through the bottom line. The green line is actually the number of MD or DO awards given, and you can tell that, so 17 is actually, the spring is 17, and then in the red line that's going up is the 1868 number. That was the fall of 17. So we're mixing our spring graduates with our fall GME positions that are filled. So in 18, you can see that 1734 graduated from a Texas medical school, and we actually filled 1,888 first-year residency positions. We definitely are so close we can say that we achieved that 1.1 to 1 goal. Now, we're anticipating that we'll have only 1,722 medical school graduates come this spring, but that's based on a 95% of first-time, full-time enrollments. So that's just what we anticipate, and that we've projected that forward. And that begins to include, you can see 2020, that 100 additional students for RGV and Dell, and then moving forward in 2021, that includes University of Incarnate Word, which has 162 medical students in each of its classes. So we'll need growth. We'll need continued growth. We think that our additional $60 million will help us get there. But those are some big questions. You can see we really had a long way to go. And the state has done an amazing job by investing in GME and actually being able to achieve this in a really short period of time. So I want to just talk a little bit about how medical school enrollment has grown, and it's grown rapidly. We've had not only the addition of our medical schools, new medical schools in the state, but we've also had a more than 30% growth at our existing medical schools. So you can see that's where we are now, and that's where we think we're going to go. So we're going to be up to educating an increase to up to 2,334 first-year medical students by 2022. So the next time that you need to go to your physician's office, know that in the future you're going to be able to get in super quick. They won't tell you it's going to be 2 weeks late. Okay, so this is the other big piece of information I wanted to share with y'all. Each one of these programs is a grant program here at the coordinating board. The autism grant program is about $3.9 million annually. That program actually was created a few years ago and really helps fund autism spectrum disorder research. We really work closely with the institutions to make sure that any grants that go out have set thresholds for students served under that program. And it's really patients that are served. So that's the way the language and the writer requires us to document so many patient services are provided. It has 3 programs under the Autism Grant Program. One is a parent-directed research section, a category, which is really directed at parents being able to get the skills they need to work with their children. The next is a teacher certification, and that is really geared toward teaching teachers how to deal with these students in the best way they can while they have them in their classroom. The final one is straight-up research, and it can be anything from funding hearing research of infants, which there's a school doing some super cool work with that, to other more traditional research areas. Next up is the Emergency and Trauma Care Education Partnership Program. You can see that in the upcoming 2 budgets, that has a little bit of a decline in funding. I'm not sure what the rationale is for it, but that they have reduced it in the budget. The next is the Family Practice Residency Program. That is the program that's been around since the late 1970s. Yeah, 1970s. We've had one program. It funds about 29 family medicine residency programs throughout the state, and its funding at one point was much higher, but it's flat this time around at $5 million, it looks like. So that provides a per resident funding level for each of there are about 733 residents in family medicine that are funded under that particular program. And it's flat, and they're not allowing additional programs to enter into that funding stream at this point because there's just not enough money to support them. I think the per resident funding level is something like $6,000 per resident. In contrast, the GME expansion money is $75,000 per resident. So the GME expansion, they're the big numbers, going up to $78.6 million per year for the biennium. That'll allow us to maintain the existing positions that are currently funded, and it will also allow for an additional 100 new first-year residency positions. The Joint Admissions Medical Program, 10.206, is still the same. I'm sure you all are well aware of what that program is. There is legislation this time around for each of the new medical schools to begin to, well, for RGV and Dell to begin to participate in that program and to begin taking medical students from the JAMP program. So the next is the Mental Health Professions Loan Repayment Program. It's staying flat. Nursing Faculty Loan Program, it looks like it was zeroed out. No, that's, sorry, 1.5 million. I was like, no, that's not zeroed out. It's staying level at 1.5 million. The other loan repayment program, which was in the budget last time around, which I don't know what it was, is gone. So I think it was a one-time $200,000. I'm not sure what it was, but it was in our budget, so I thought I'd make sure I mentioned it to you all. Then we have the Physician Education Loan Repayment Program, which is something that medical schools are really interested in, and making sure that, again, it's the debt goal would be helped by making sure that this program is running smoothly and sufficiently, and we think it is. I believe it's fully subscribed at this point, but next up is the preceptorship program. That is the program that gets medical students out from their medical schools into the community at the earliest possible time so they can go shadow medical students, that shadow physicians practicing in commonly where they grew up. So if they go home for the summer, they can shadow a physician and kind of learn about it. That program, I mean, it's a great program. It's really geared toward primary care. One of the concerns I have is that many of our medical schools are shortening the timeline in the summer, and they're really kind of expanding their curriculum to get students through very quickly. And a lot, I know Dell Medical School is actually doing this, or encouraging them to get some other kind of certificate or master's degree along with their MD. Great thing, but it's going to limit participation in this particular program. There are actually 3 programs under that: family medicine, pediatrics, and internal medicine. So those are the specialties that are actually promoted. Again, we know we need more primary care physicians, and this is one of the efforts to do that. And then finally, the professional nurse. Yes?
Is that a typo on the funding for 19?
For 19. Yeah, it is. In fact, that is very much a typo that I will take responsibility for. That's my error. I was a little zero happy there.
Okay.
I think they would love it if they got that, but no, they didn't get that. Sorry, I will correct that in what we send out to everybody. That's pretty funny. Also, then there's the Professional Nursing Shortage Reduction Program, and it looks like it's gone down just a little bit in this budget. So, and I'm not sure where those numbers came from, but I don't know. Anyway, additionally, probably of interest to y'all, there are several bills that are pending in the legislature right now. One would create a consortium of psychiatry departments at our health-related institutions, and I'm not sure where that is moving along in the process, but I know our chairs of psychiatry get together pretty regularly and have for the last 2 years, and are really trying to encourage efforts to get out into the community and partner with local communities to get mental health services out to as many people as possible. So I may have gone a little fast, but I'm happy to address any questions. I'll open it up to y'all now. So, and there's my contact information. And you can email me, text me. Well, you can't text me from here. You can call me or email me.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I was wondering, so you talked about all these sources that we have for funding for the medical education. I'm wondering, how crucial do you think it is that we have funding from outside higher ed, so from health service providers, to ensure that we have that adequate ratio, maintain that adequate ratio of needed 1.1-to-1 first-year residency slots?
So that's a great question. What we've seen is really an awful lot of the hospitals have pooled together and sort of become giant corporations, and now we have HCA in Texas that has committed to expanding residency training. And I think in North Texas they want to open some bridge. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. Funding for GME is extraordinarily complicated. I'm happy to go into it because I love it, but it's the big source is through the federal government, through Medicaid and Medicare Services. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, because we continue to convince legislators to offer more funding as we're able to fund these kind of things. And from your earlier chart, you're projecting we're going to need a lot more residency slots than we have. And I'm just, so I was kind of thinking, how crucial of a role do those health service providers play in forming partnerships to help us support that?
Crucial. Yeah. They play a crucial role.
And they do it, and they do it within their local community. So they wouldn't make a donation to a central place. It is in their region, actually, to be quite honest, for their future source of physicians. So it's very much a localized relationship between a medical school and its big clinical partner.
And that makes sense because they want to be able to serve their population.
And know exactly who they're going to get. If they train under them, they know who they want to keep.
Exactly. And I will say this about GME. So the cost to train a resident for a year is estimated to be around $150,000. The GME Expansion Fund provides $75,000. So there is a piece that's being picked up by another entity, whatever that might be.
And for folks on the phone, you're unmuted, so if you have any other questions or comments.
Yes, this is Chris McKee at UTMB.
Hi, Chris.
You had shown that graphic of a slow increase in out of medical school. Are you seeing schools add, West Milton add capacity to their schools, or are you like that? Most schools are capped at a certain enrollment authority, and I'm just curious if you're seeing
the kind of people nobody believes.
That one right there, that one.
Okay, sure.
Seeing schools add capacity throughout the meeting.
Okay, and we do have someone who I think they're muted, but they're not. So if you want to just go ahead and mute if you're not chatting, and we'll try and keep the line open on our end. Okay. Okay, so medical schools actually, you mean the medical students being capped? Because I'm not familiar with the cap on medical students.
Well, for example, Texas Medical Science School of Medicine is capped at 230 students per year, and that we can't hit that cap because that's our accreditor demands that we keep it at 230. And that's what I'm referring to.
So do you want to go up or down?
Going up, right? I mean, that's what you're
I don't believe they are. LCME doesn't cap students, but you have to explain to the accreditor that you're going to grow.
Well, yeah, you have to go through a process. You got to show that you've got the resources to place the position.
You got anything here? Yeah.
So I think, just to make sure we're all on the same page, what you're saying is that, we're talking about needed growth and we anticipate growth, but from the institutional side, the problem is that you have accrediting requirements that make it difficult sometimes or challenging, at least to make that growth happen because you're capped based on the resources you currently have in place. Correct?
Yes.
That branch of the UT system, most of the UT medical schools, other than the brand new ones at Dell and RGV, consider themselves to be at capacity. I mean, there's a limit without an extensive increase in resources to go beyond the size that they are. Now, what's interesting is there is a piece of legislation that says any medical school, the current law says if you're going to start a medical school, you need to show that you have the first-year GME slots. There's a bill that adds to that statute that says if you intend to increase your enrollment by a significant amount. And I actually was not sure where that was coming from, but I'm assuming there might be some medical schools that could potentially have significant increases in their enrollment.
So that is Senate Bill 1378 by Buckingham, and it's going to be heard tomorrow in the Senate Higher Ed Committee. So that actually, it's again only specific to new medical schools. So it's not actually new. It's a proposal for a new medical program. So I'm being very precise with my language because they actually removed the term new. But it's a proposal for a degree program that would be approved by the coordinating board. For those institutions, they would also have to submit a plan that said what their maximum class size might be. So I'll give you an example. University of Houston, which is slated to open, I think their goal is to open in 2020, in that spring. They're going to open with 30 medical students, grow the next year to 60, stay there for 2 years, and then eventually hit their goal of 120 medical students. And that differs from the UNT-TCU proposal, which they're saying we're going to have 60 students. That's all we're going to have. Every year it's going to be 60. Also different from Sam Houston, which says we're going to have 150. So very different class sizes, very different growth models. I don't know if that helps at all. I know for UNT, you're under the accreditor of the AOA, and they may make it a little bit more difficult to say we want to grow. But as far as the LCME goes, their growth is something you do need to tell them about, but it's not something that there's not a cap in the way that I'm thinking about a cap, which relates to GME, which if your hospital is capped, if your residency program, if your hospital is capped, you don't get to add more residents that are paid for by CMS, basically. So does that help?
We also have a class about car accident, self-administered drug overdose.
What about 36? I don't know if I responded.
Yeah, we were doing a question.
Alabama.
35 random deaths. Well, that's why we got to find something solid. Otherwise, I don't want to waste your time here.
Try again to speak.
I think you've answered my question anyway.
Oh, great. All right. Thank you.
All right. All right, and if, unless there are any other questions, we'll plan to move on to our next session. Thank you, Stacy, for the updates. Appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for working with us on the technology, muting, unmuting. So we're just going to take a second to transition the presentations here. So you need to grab a drink of water real quick or run to the restroom. We'll start again in a minute or so.
Actually, may not be applying.
There was a question about the presentations being available, so definitely we will make the presentations available afterwards, and we'll post them to the website for this particular event.
Yeah, right now only the initial set of presentations were available, but the rest will be going up later today.
Skateboarding, baseball, statistics.
Thought it play out.
It is.
That's good.
The law with that little trick? The law of conservation of angular momentum. But is Sir Isaac Newton going to come and bust me? Charlie, you're not going to hard sell me on this college thing, are you? No, actually, I don't help. There's no information on front-end documentation for what you're now we have to go through the evolution. No, that's everything. Flash drives, contains, watch.
All right, we'll be getting started in just about 1 minute.
Because there's 5 people that died, well, they must have done something. Probably becoming a bit dangerous. That being said, I have already been shot at.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't exit out of her. Oh, that was weird. It told me it was safe to check the pilot for that. You also did it? No. Just like now closing into it. So now we're going to talk about marketable skills, and we have Dr. Ginger Gossman, our Senior Director in Innovation and Policy Development, to give us an update.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and for coming in person. So I just want to give you a quick update on the marketable skills goal. And just some reminder slides about why we're asking for this. This is the third of our 4 student-centered goals in 60 by 30 text. And the idea behind this goal is we want to make students aware of the skills they're accruing in their programs, their academic and technical programs, so that they can market themselves to get a good job, whatever that may be. Early on in the planning of 60 by 30 text, we talked a lot with our committee about how degrees, yes, many of them map directly to a job pipeline, which you guys are the example of that, really, for the state, or one major example of that. But there are a lot of jobs where the pipeline is not exactly clear, and that's okay. So let's help those students where the pipeline is not exactly clear find a way to look at different jobs and feel confident about applying for them. And we call that the awareness gap. where there are skills that they have that are valued in the workplace, but they don't always know how the two fit together. UCLA every year does their American Assessment Survey. They ask a nationally representative survey, and they ask what's the most important reason for you going to college. And every year, over 80% say it's to get a better job. So we have two targets under the marketable skills goal. The first target, the deadline is actually next year, 2020. And that is that we've asked institutions to both create and implement a process to identify the marketable skills, and part of that process design would be a way to update those skills on a regular basis. What that means on a regular basis, we've left it up to the institutions to decide, to y'all. The second one is that we follow a metric. We've actually been following the same metric for almost 20 years, I think, where we're looking at placement from higher education into workforce. We connect our data to the Texas workforce unemployment insurance data, and every year, at least for the last 5 or 6 years, it's been about 80%. We want to follow that number and see where it goes, because it could go up, and that could be a good thing, or it could go down, and that could be a good thing. No, that sounds strange. So let's say that the 80% goes up to 90%. So more of our graduates are finding placement in Texas. That could be fantastic for our economy. But what if they're placing into lower paying jobs? Or let's say the number goes down, and instead of 80, we're placing students at, say, 60%. That's a drastic drop. But maybe it's because Amazon 13 has opened up in Illinois, and all of our graduates are getting great jobs with great pay. While that may not be great for Texas economy, it's still great for our graduates. So again, we want to follow that number, see if it changes, and then understand why it's changed. So some of the things that the coordinating board has been doing to help institutions accomplish this goal, we have been hosting marketable skills conferences every 2 years. We are just beginning to plan one for 2020, and we're really thinking about how to help institutions not just implement the goal, but think about the future of the goal and how this can have a positive impact on their programs. We also have some guidelines that we can share if you haven't already seen them. I think you probably have. We also have produced a handbook on career readiness, which I'll talk about in a moment. And we are also developing, or rather we have developed a toolkit for how to design an internship that is aligned with 60 by 30 text. Now, the toolkit is just entering into its production phase, and I'm using air quotes because we're sending it to make it look pretty with a graphic designer, and that's my production phase. So the toolkit, it gives guidance in two directions. One, for employers who already have an internship program, what could they do to tweak it so that it's better aligned with 60 by 30 text? Or two, if you don't have an internship program, here's how to build one from scratch so that it is already aligned with 60 by 30 text. So the Career Readiness Handbook is really geared towards undergraduate students of any age. It's not focused on traditional age students. And it gives ideas for them to think about their careers from the beginning of their higher education experience. How do you start thinking about your career trajectory, and what are some things you can do, some actionable things you can do to plan for that career? Even if you don't know what it is, it's okay to start talking to people. It's okay to ask questions. And there are some exercises in the handbook to help them think through what they might want to do and who they might want to talk to on their campus. And that is available online, as you can see here. So how are we doing on this goal? These data represent all institutions. So those of you who are involved with the accountability system directly, you know there's sort of a backstage where we ask questions that don't necessarily get posted on the accountability page, or the accountability site. And so this year we tried to ask a very clear-cut question on how institutions are doing on the marketable skills goal. We asked this last time too, and we didn't nail it in terms of question design, so we did not get responses that gave us much information. That was my bad for not writing a good question. We feel like we did a lot better this year, and we got some great data. So the dark blue is people who feel like they are done, institutions reporting they are done. They haven't reached that goal where the deadline is 2020. The light blue is, well, we've got the process, but we haven't implemented it yet, so stay tuned. So hopefully by 2020, all those 17% will convert into yeses. Neon yellow, nope. We've got. Oh, that's not helpful.
What's the dark black mean?
There we go. So the dark black means I made an error. So the neon yellow, just folks who said we just don't have a handle on this yet. So we might be reaching out and offering technical assistance to those guys. And then the dark gold, they did not respond to the item at all. So we have I think of all the yellow as folks that we really need to help. So we're going to be thinking about how to do that. I did go back and look at the data, and I think most of you fall squarely in the dark blue. So I recognize that the marketable skills goal for you all, for HRIs, is probably a no-brainer, right? Because you already do this, because your students are coming into a pipeline that's very closely connected to the workforce. They know the skills they need to get the jobs they want. And that's all pretty clearly articulated in the business of your work. We just want to ask one step further, clearly articulated somewhere for students. And again, while this may not seem like a high priority because you do have such a clear pipeline, you just never know where your students might land. There are a lot of people, for example, who earn a lawyer's degree who don't ever practice law. That's a little different for you when it comes to when you're growing the doctors in Texas, because most people who study to become a doctor practice medicine. But there could be other people you're training in your programs who may not go directly into the field that you think, and helping them have the marketable skills at hand could help them translate their skills. For example, as technology continues to grow, you may be training a lot of people who may actually enter the tech sector, either in sales, in development, or in management. So, again, just helping your students think more broadly about the application of your programs is all what we're asking you to do. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. But again, most of you, when you responded to the survey, really talked about how you're looking at your accreditation requirements. You're using those as a jumping off point for identifying your marketable skills, because your pipeline is pretty clearly laid out.
Do you have the contacts of the different institutions that have responded to that?
Yeah, worried about how
find out if we can find out to make sure our institution has responded.
Yes, we have. I didn't break it down.
Yeah,
because
we contact you individually.
Right, because there's a few of you, and I didn't want to. But yes, we do have that by sector. When I looked at the data this morning, it looked like all of you had responded.
So how about we'll reach out to you directly if you aren't on the list.
Yeah.
And we did just from a back-end procedural piece of this, when we initially asked kind of the initial submission deadline, we only had about 50% of institutions responding, so we did kind of a second specific push to your reporting officials or your reporting, the staff people that do your reporting, to reach out to ask them to make sure they answered this question. And so this was after second wave that we still had some that were not. And so in terms of our process going forward, this is going to be, we're going to ask this again next year to hopefully keep this as a standard question for a little while. And so this year what we decided to do is that we would be showing this information in the aggregate, but next year, please anticipate that we'll be showing it at the institutional level, and we can have that available. We'll also we asked the second question about the percentage of your programs that you've completed through this process. That's a question that we're going to just keep in-house this year, but again, next year we'll be moving to sharing that information more broadly. So we're kind of in this process of test a question, make sure it's good, we're getting good data, and then the following year we'll make that more publicly available. So anyway, that's another piece that we're looking at.
So one of the big questions I think institutions had a couple of years ago was, what is it you want and how do I know if I'm doing it right? So of the 41% who have checked the box that we've created and implemented it, is there any feedback to them that what they're doing is what was intended or hoped for?
So we're just looking at, as Jenna was mentioning, we asked more than one question. It was a series of 4 questions. It was first sort of the yes, no. And then we asked, so could you describe to us what you're doing? And we're just now digging into that. Can you describe to what you're doing so we can give feedback to institutions on that? But I can tell you, many of the people that we see, or many of the institutions we see that look like what we were hoping for, we're saying, we've identified this process that involves faculty and industry and figuring out what's needed and what we're offering and how we're satisfying that, and then we're posting it online for our students to see. So that's sort of becoming the ideal model for us to see. And it may be that we end up asking for the website, for the link for where those marketable skills are posted. So another way we'll know is through Stacy's shop, because it's now required that when you propose a new program, you have to identify the marketable skills that are being offered. So we can see it through the new program proposals as well, whether or not that people are accomplishing what we had hoped. And really what we're hoping is that there is that process that includes employers in some way. We don't want them to dictate what you're doing, but we do hope you're talking to them about what you're offering, to see what you're doing, because there may be some things that they ask you for that's not really in your purview to do. You can't create ready-to-work people for every industry. They have unique software, they have unique culture, they have unique needs, and higher education can't satisfy everything. We are still in the business of creating good citizens. That's our high level of training, right? So we are looking for what we're using the data this year to try to identify what we consider best practices so we can kind of map out what we think is the ideal model for folks. So I don't feel like I answered your question.
No, I'm trying to.
Okay. Thank you.
You'll know it when you see it.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, but yeah, we'll know when we see it.
Well, and I think heading towards the 2020 conference, having more institutional examples to be able to say, here are some exemplars from kind of the early feedback, I think would be really helpful to say, does it quack like a duck and does it waddle like a duck, and what are we doing? But I think the guidelines, too, if you haven't seen the guidelines document, is helpful. It's very practical in terms of what it is in institutions, how a couple of different ways an institution might approach the process, and then what it would look like for students to really know and understand their marketable skills.
And I think some of the feedback we've gotten kind of in a roundabout way on the guidelines is that it offers too many options. and what do you want us to do? Kind of, for those who don't have, and I totally understand that. I could see someone being in a position where, yes, these options are great, but if you just tell me what it is how you want me to do it, I will do it that way. So that's the next step, is to give a map. Still, we're not going to say this is what we want you to do, but we will say this appears to be the best practice.
All right, let's go ahead and unmute. Anybody else on the call want to share anything or ask any questions about marketable skills?
Oh, I've never seen her. She worked for your campaign. She was murdered.
All right. Great. Very good. Well, okay, we're going to go ahead and mute. So if you have anything else, just go ahead and type in the chat. And let me just ask, is there anything else that's come in the chat that we haven't addressed?
I don't think so.
Okay, just some logistical items, and I think we got that one before. So, okay. So I think turn it back over to Elizabeth to kind of do debrief and wrap for us.
Okay. So, obviously we've crammed a lot of information at you all this morning to try to kind of get us all on the same base, kind of where we are in terms of the accountability system updates, in terms of our regional targets, and our graduate medical education and marketable skills, and hopefully provide you all with information that is useful to you in trying to help you determine how to move forward. Along that note, I do want to note that you should be getting or have gotten an email from us with an evaluation, just asking for some feedback. Oh, it'll be coming at noon. Sorry. So at noon, you will get an email. If you don't see it, please check your junk mail to see if it went to spam. Just asking for some feedback on the meeting today and just your thoughts on how it worked and if you have suggestions for us in the future. And we did appreciate when we reached out to you all and you gave us some feedback on here's things we want to know more about, like the graduate medical education was a topic that we know you all wanted some more information on. So just as kind of a reminder of, what we covered today, we've made improvements in the accountability system. We anticipate more to come, hopefully really those things that make it more user-friendly for you all to help develop that. And that, kind of giving you this regional context. I know as health-related institutions, in some ways y'all kind of function in your own bubble because you have additional accreditation requirements and things that make you distinct compared to our other groups. So, but we want to always know that we want you to know we're keeping you in line with those regional targets, and we want to make sure that you take those opportunities to share information with us, like in August when we will ask for the action plan update both for the regions and for the institutions to kind of make sure that we're on the same page with what you're doing. And likewise, it sounds like everyone is on target with the marketable skills for your institutions, but we do have a lot of great resources, and Ginger is always available to help for questions and kind of help work through those processes as we get there, and we hope we get those best practices in place to help you guys identify those. But as mentioned, I think in some ways when we talk about workforce and we talk about health-related institutions, you all are in the best position to articulate what those marketable skills look like, because that's a lot of what you're already doing for your accreditation. And it's just that extra step of making sure that the students understand these are the skills I've acquired. And in some programs, that's more clear than others to them. So just to make themselves more marketable, to hopefully get those jobs that help them have, decent lives and good wages. So, basically, then we really thank you all for your feedback in helping us formulate the meeting this time and participation, and just open it up for if there are any additional questions. I think we're good, but just overall for the meeting or anything that we've covered.
So I'm assuming that she's our computer scientist. That's right. She told us.
And let me just ask, does the evaluation talk about format of the meeting as well as content of the meeting?
The evaluation did not include anything on the format. It included information on specific topics, but there is an open-ended question where I would encourage you all to kind of put any feedback you have in terms of whether you feel like this mode works well or if you think it's better when we get together and do this in person.
And I would just add, I think it's absolutely harder to have discussion, but it saves the time and resources of travel. So, if you have cons or want to weigh in on that, let us know. I think it's an opportunity for us to get together and talk as a sector. And so we will obviously continue to have these meetings, but help us think about what's the best way to bring everyone together. And if there are particular burning topics you want us to think about for upcoming years, please use that open-ended section as well for other items.
Can I ask one? Yeah. The times when we certainly had more folks in attendance were meetings where we discussed the actual measures included in the accountability.
Right.
And then maybe because of another legislative session, the next year becomes an opportunity to step back and say, are the measures we have the most appropriate ones? And particularly as it relates to the out-of-state peers. I really think that's a bad fit for the health institutions at an institution level. And I guess from UT institutions, I know our presidents are very cautious when there's any comparison from one institution to another, unless it's a single one or two other institutions and it's highly focused within the medical school or the research enterprise. And so I think from a statewide perspective, that's one that probably needs more consideration and discussion. And whether or not we'll have another chance to sit down and talk about what measures are in place.
Yeah. I think the pendulum swung at one point in time to making changes to the measures more frequently, and it's swung the other way now to say let's try to be somewhat more consistent for a stretch of time. That doesn't mean we shouldn't put on the table things like the out-of-state peers and have a discussion about that. And I think we have been thinking about 2020 is like 5 years into the plan, that post-2020 that we'll be open to thinking about, modifications to some of our goals and targets if there's a particular, if we see trends where the numbers need to change or methodology tweaks, that would be kind of a time we're going to think about it. And I would think about the accountability system maybe being on a similar timeline to say, are these kind of the right measures? And you're pointing to something which is, the last several years have been all about this kind of shift to the new plan, deciding what the right measures are and how to define them and so forth. And so, anyway, we have gotten to kind of a steady state place for, this year and next year probably, and then post-2020, I think, putting that back on the table. But absolutely, the out-of-state peers is one that I think we could talk about sooner.
And I don't want to imply that I want more measures, because I think less is
that's where
less is more, and I think actually the moving to 60 by 30 shrunk them in part because there's still little in 60 by 30 that picks up what health institutions do. So that's not that we're in a bad place, but it's, I think, always worth a visit on the measures and how they're calculated, and are we seeing things that the legislature now views as more important or less important.
Right. Yep, that's great feedback. Can you just unmute for a second?
Yes, will these presentations be available after the meeting?
You bet. Well, we will get those posted probably later today.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so unless there are other questions, just kind of to recap, our follow-up is going to be we will post the presentations for you online. As Jenna just pointed out, we're going to follow up and share the liaisons from last year's for the regional action plan and institutional action plan information to make sure everybody knows at their institution who ensure we're following up with the right people. And then if for some reason you're concerned about whether you're, the
marketable skills.
So for the marketable skills, we will follow up with you if we have not heard from your institution. So if we don't follow up with you, that means you're good. You've reported your marketable skills data. So I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time today, and look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Jane.
Thank you.
Processing 4 things at once. Nice. She wanted to be sure I had time for Pico, feed him, take him for a walk in his favorite park. I told her, of course,